And good hello and welcome to the March edition of Comet Watch. Yes, I know we completely missed the plot in February, but then again we were recording the January show late and it was also played late. So that's our excuse and we're sticking to it. So as usual, it's myself, Nick Evetts.
And Mary McIntyre.
And Neil Norman.
And as always, we'll do the piece we get the most email about, the cometary shipping forecast. So we'll start with always the latest discoveries. Okay, so let me just get rid of that out there. So February the 5th, Zhejiang Zhu reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
Also on February the 5th, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
And again on the 5th of February, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Marsden Group comet in real-time C2 images.
February 7th, discovery of 2018 B1 Lemon reported.
February the 7th, Zhejiang Zhu reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
February the 11th was the discovery of 2018 C1 periodic comet Lemon Reed reported.
Also on February the 11th, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Maya Group comet in real-time C2 images.
February the 14th, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
On the 15th of February, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
On February the 19th, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
And then February the 19th, Warshati Bloomplod reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
On February the 24th, Warshati Bloomplod reported a Maya Group comet in real-time C2 images.
On February 25th, Ximon Liuo reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
Just pop back to February the 22nd because I think we missed one out there. That was Zhejiang Zhu reports a Kreutz Group comet in real-time C3 images.
Okay, so back to 26th of February, we regret to report the death of McIntyre, the director of the Comet.
Hello Neil, are you still with us?
I am, yeah.
You went very, very muffled. Do you want to repeat that, please?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. Yes, we go back to the 26th of February, where we regret to report the death of Mike Hendry, director of the Comet section from 1977 to 1987.
February 27th, discovery of 2017 U6, 2011 WG113 Pan-STARRS reported.
And March the 1st was the last update.
Now, Jonathan Shanklin is back from Antarctica, so according to the notes, so updates should be more prompt. But if there have been no recent updates, try the German Comet Group page or Yoshida's page, or Liga Ibero-Americana de Astronomía for observations and more information. Now, we're going to move on to current comet magnitudes March the 1st and observable region March the 1st. So we'll kick this off with Pan-STARRS 2016 R2, magnitude 10.5, steady, 80 degrees north to 30 degrees south. It's an evening object and was last visually observed February 2018.
Then we have Pan-STARRS 2016 M1, that's currently at magnitude 10.5 and that is brightening, observable 55 degrees north to 35 degrees south. That's an early morning object and was last visually observed in February 2018.
Next we have Heinz 2017 T1, magnitude 11 and now fading, currently at poor elongation and was last seen in February.
Pan-STARRS 2016 N6, 11.5 magnitude. It's bright and it's from 80 degrees north to 15 degrees north all night. Last observed February 2018.
Then we have 185P Petru, that's at mag 11.5 and fading, observable 60 degrees north to 30 degrees south. That's an early evening object, last visually observed in February 2018.
Next is 62P, forgive the pronunciation, to Shenzhen, magnitude 12.5, now fading, 70 degrees north to 60 degrees south, best viewed in the morning and was last viewed in January 2018.
Next is 240p neat, that's 13 magnitude question mark, steady, 40 degrees north to 35 degrees south, early evening and not yet observed.
Then we have 29p Schwarzmann-Wachmann, currently 13 question mark, as we know that does vary, currently in conjunction with the Sun, so not being observed since October 2017.
Next is Pan-STARRS 2015 01, magnitude 13 and is steady, 80 degrees north to 20 degrees south, best viewed in the morning and was last reported in January.
Next is Assassin 2017 01, 13th magnitude. It's fading, it's 80 degrees north to 15 degrees north, all night, last observed January 2018.
And finally, we have Johnson 2015 V2, currently magnitude 13.5 and fading, currently at poor elongation and hasn't been visually observed since September 2017.
Now, the observable region is an approximate indication of the latitude at which the comet may be seen. Under good conditions, obviously, the comet may be visible outside of this range. The period when visible is for the UK, if the comet is visible from the UK, otherwise for 40 south or the equator as appropriate. Obviously the last visual observation is as received by the BAA Comet section. Details are often updated on the basis of observations published elsewhere. So normally this would be done fully updated at the beginning of each month, but may be updated more frequently for comets brighter than 10th magnitude, with the date of the most partial update. May only apply to one object is given. Beginners will often find comets fainter than about 7th magnitude difficult to locate, so do come to the BAA Comet section page for information on positions and finder charts. And I want to thank, as always, Nick James for letting us use this wonderful resource. Now, the next part of the show. This is the bit that most people love to wait for, and they'll happily listen to us chunter off all these comets. So, would our special guest like to introduce themselves?
Yes, hello. This is Bob King, and I live in Duluth, Minnesota, and I love comets. I'm wild about them, and I have been for many, many years. I work as a photo editor at the Duluth News Tribune. That's my daytime job, and at night I am out looking for comets and lots of other things. I also do some writing for Sky and Telescope and Universe Today, and I've written a couple of books. The first one is already out, and the second one will be out in April.
Sweet. Now, Bob, could you tell us a bit about your setup, please?
My setup is get out there quick to take advantage of whatever clear skies you can have. I've got several different scopes. My largest one, the one I'll take out to the countryside for really dark skies, is a 15-inch Obsession reflecting telescope, a Dob, that I assemble on the spot. It takes about 6 minutes, a little bit longer when it's below zero. Mm-hmm. And then my quick telescope that I can bring out if I want to see a nova or a supernova outburst, and I can do that from my home. I have just a ratty old 10-inch Dob, 10-inch f6, and I pull that out into the driveway and observe with that. I also keep a solar scope, and my wife just got here, so if I told her how many scopes I really have, probably her too. But I do. It's nice to have some for traveling. But my main ones are the 10-inch and 15-inch.
Mary?
So do you have a favourite out of those telescopes? Because I know I gravitate towards my favourites when there are several on offer, or are the sky conditions what dictate what you're going to use?
Well, my favorite would have to be the 15 because I like as much light as I can squeeze into my eyes as possible. So when I can, I'll always assemble up the 15 and do my observing with that. I almost forgot, I recently bought a 10-inch f4.5 Skywatcher Dob that sets up in about 2 minutes, and I use that when I teach astronomy because I can get the scope out there in a hurry so people can get a look and then go run back into their cars to warm up.
Yeah.
I really did buy it because of the cold weather, because I didn't want people freezing as I assembled any other telescope. So it's very fast. The images are excellent in this scope. So maybe that's my second scope that I like after the 15-inch.
I have to admit, I am converting over to Dobbs myself later this year. A good friend of mine builds them, and he's offered me a 20-inch Dob at f3.3.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to putting my DSLR on it, and I've already got my eye on an Attic 383 Plus eventually to go on there. So, and he's told me that, well, you're going to need to have servo cap because you're going to need to deal with derotation. And I said, look, just tell me what I need, and I will check the slush fund and take it from there. So this is going to be interesting.
Well, a 20-inch visually would just be fantastic, of course. I don't do much photography through my telescopes. I do mostly wide field photography using a tracking mount or just a quick tripod. But one of my favorite things to do is when we go and do public observing is to set up a Dob and then just have everybody line up with their cell phones. Yeah. And I assist, with holding the phone a little bit so that they have the pleasure of pressing the button, and they're just blown away when they see a picture. We always do it when the moon is out.
Yeah.
So they get a picture. You guys must do that too, right? They get a picture of the moon. They're so happy.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to admit, I will be totally honest, one of the things I'm getting that particular instrument for is the moon. There are times I'm just happy to sit there with the binoculars or a smaller scope and just crater hop, and being able to actually slave it to virtual moon atlas or whatever or my planetarium program, particularly if I'm going for comets, and then just run it that way and just sit there and watch my computer screen. I have a 2-screen setup. I'm going to 3 screens shortly. That's going to be fun.
What's past stereo? Let's see. There's got to be a word for that.
Well, I've got one screen for the software that's actually pulling the image off the camera. Then I've got a screen so that I can be chatting with my astronomy friends, and if I can have another screen up so I can just be using my favourite YouTube mix, and be listening to that whilst I image. That's what I love doing. I love music. Neil, our 10 questions.
Yeah. 10 questions. Yes, Bob. When you're observing, do you like to listen to music while you're observing?
Oh boy, I love music. I do. If I'm at home, I have where I store my telescopes in a small shed just off the side of the house, and when I'm at home, I always have the radio on in the background. It really sends me off into space sometimes. Wonderful for contemplation while I'm observing. If I go out to the country, if I want darker skies, then I don't have music. I just go with the sounds of the night, which I enjoy too. In the wintertime, sometimes you can hear a river in the distance, or I can hear trees cracking because of the cold. That wonderful sound. And then in the summer, the frogs, the crickets, it's all music. So that's how I listen to it in the country.
Well, depending on what observatory I'm using, if I'm using my UK one, I'll have the odd badger, definitely hedgehogs, foxes, owls, and there's a pair of owls which nest near to my home in the UK, and just listening to them calling to each other, that's just totally wicked. They're out there with the telescope, and they've got used to the sounds of my Newtonian mount going as it tracks. It doesn't faze them anymore.
Oh, that's great. It's just another animal sound. Right? Just another sound. Yeah, it really is a pleasure to listen to the night sounds.
I've got used to it now, but when I go to my dark sky site by myself, I really want to get a pair of night vision binoculars because I know there is stuff in the copse watching me. I can hear the twigs breaking, and the minute I turn that way, it goes silent. Then I turn my back and the twigs start snapping again. And the first time it happened, I was kind of like, right, I'm getting in the car and going home now. But I really want some night vision camera equipment, then I can actually see what's watching me, because I'm fascinated because there's the noisy stuff we know, don't we? You know what owls are like, and noisy little hedgehogs and stuff, but I suspect that it's just deer, but it is quite alarming the first time you go out in the quiet by itself.
I understand that, and Mary, that's exactly, I have not done it either, but I really would like to get some kind of night vision device, just so I could look around when I hear those sounds too. Again, like you, most of the time I think, oh, it must be deer. But sometimes it's a much bigger sound, like maybe a bear, or bobcats wander around here, and wolves as well. So I'd love to be able to see them at night.
I don't know if it's scarier knowing or not knowing sometimes.
Right, maybe it's better to not know.
I was camping down near New Athens in Ohio. And I know if anybody from Ohio is listening, they're going to say, no, it's Athens, whatever. And the campsite was fairly remote, and we were at the fire, we were eating everything, and I wanted my jacket, and I went back to the tent, and there was this beautiful wolf just standing there looking at me as if to say, what are you doing here? I suspect we were rather foolishly had set up camp on its hunting trail.
Right.
But you know what, it was just there, and it sat down, gave itself a scratch, and just looked at me as to say, fine, okay, not going to bother me, are you? I'm thinking, no. I went back with a big grin on my face, and a couple of the people we were with panicked and ran spent the night in the car. We told them there were wolves nearby.
So how do you go about doing your searches, Bob?
Well, I like to just keep up with Comet news, and so I'll check various websites. And then, of course, I'm a member of the Comet list, and so I get all of the current magnitudes and new discoveries. And so I'll check that way, and as soon as I know about a comet, I'll make sure to get out and make an observation of it. Or if it's not comets, it's supernovae, which I really enjoy hunting up. And then novae and variable stars, well, all kinds of different things. And so I like to have a night where things are mixed. Mm-hmm. And right now we're kind of slow on the comets right now. We're in a big pause until all of the excitement of the summer and fall, because we have some wonderful things coming our way. So mostly I've been out just looking at deep sky objects lately.
I have to admit, go on, Neil.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask a question to Bob. Have you ever thought about trying to discover a comet for yourself?
Yes, I have thought about it. And long ago I thought about trying to search for one, but I never seriously did it. I just poked around a little bit, but it never came to anything. Now, I guess I should have used the opportunity back 20, 30 years ago, because now it's becoming really difficult for an amateur anyway to find a comet. Not impossible, but definitely harder.
Yeah, because...
How about you? Neil, do you look for comets too? Search?
No, no. That's with my capabilities, I wouldn't even dream to do it. I'd leave that to sort of people like Terry Lovejoy or Gennady Borisov, who seem to have quite a good success rate at that sort of thing in the amateur field. But the people like Pan-STARRS and Catalina, I think they've got it, and Atlas now as well, they're finding them too. So they've pretty much got it summed up, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. But, the upside of that is that so many comets are being discovered way in advance, and so we can kind of anticipate, how bright they're going to become at perihelion. There's just a lot more to pick from, I think, overall.
I have to admit that the internet has certainly made getting the word out about comets much, much easier. Particularly when you've got applications online like the Sky Live and stuff. They'll give you a planetarium program that will show you exactly where in the sky it is, how faint or how bright it is, and they'll even tell you if it's visible from your location. Mm-hmm. So it gets it's interesting in that respect, but
there's another great thing as well, Nick. I mean, if you some of the people may want to go onto the possible comet confirmation page, and then you get a list of comets. There's about 4 or 5 on there right now, and if you go and get another program called Find Orb, you can put in the orbital elements because they're on the database from the Minor Planet Center anyway, and then you can see way in advance, before they're even designated with a name, what this comet is likely to be. If it's going to be one that has a perihelion that, the orbit of Jupiter, or it may come closer, and then you can work out for yourself, and you can run it through, so you can actually see then how close the Earth is at perigee. So you can tell then way in advance if a comet is going to be something good, or just another, Jupiter family comet, which is not going to get above 20th magnitude, basically. But there's lots of tools out there.
Yeah.
That,
Good point. Oh, please, can we have another Shoemaker-Levy 9?
Oh, yes, please. Or, what I would like is another Comet Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my favorite comets. My gosh, what a spectacular... Just to watch the evolution of that comet, that was such a thrill. I assume you all saw that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I imaged it. It was one of the very first comets I think I actually imaged via a certain remote telescope based in the Canaries. I wish I could find the picture these days, but I can't find it anymore, so I'll just have to dig. According to my stats, I have over 6,000 images.
Wow. That's a lot. You should put a book together of some of your favorites.
As I say, it's just like quite often I will see what's going on via the telescope, and I'll take an image and maybe come back to it in a week later. Because if someone says something, were you imaging such and such around such and such, and did you see anything? I'll go back and look at the image and probably kick myself because it was probably right there in front of my nose. And,
I have a question to ask about Comet Holmes, and maybe you, if you don't mind if I ask, if you could share your experience with it. I remember seeing it at the very beginning during the outburst. It looked just like a star. I think it was about 9th magnitude, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
You could barely tell it was a comet. Within the first few days, however, the coma expanded, and it was not... Now, normally a coma looks very smooth, but I remember one particular night, very early on, that it had small, like almost scintillations within the coma, these bright spots. Did any of you see this? I've seen very few reports on this.
I know.
I must admit, yes.
You did.
Yes, because the popular consensus is that it ran into something, or it had a major explosion, a build-up of gas within the nucleus. And it's common consensus that a lot of that was the debris, the larger particles, which would, obviously be quite large. It nearly blew itself to pieces.
Yeah.
It also did it when it was discovered. It was actually discovered when it was in outburst. It's normally a very well-behaved object, but it does do some crazy things sometimes. So it's a very... There's some serious orbital stuff going on there.
That was... I'm glad you mentioned that you saw the same thing, because I only saw it one night, and I assume that's what I was seeing were fragments of this comet, which to me was absolutely incredible. I have never seen fragments moving through or inside of a comet's coma. I've seen pieces broken off, like with 73P, where fragments, you get several extra little comets. But I've only ever seen that with Holmes.
Comet Hale-Bopp did it as well.
With
one fragment was seen moving away from the nucleus. An outgassing event, I should imagine.
Yeah, and occasionally there have been other comets where a little piece will crack off and will kind of go down the tail and get fuzzy for a little while. But oh my gosh, see, I love talking about comets. Hale-Bopp, the inner shells, the fountaining that went on inside that comet or on the nucleus that created the spiral shells of material around it. That was also another unforgettable sight for comet watching. That's why I like doing it. You just don't know, right, what you're going to see sometimes. You just have to track it and be available.
Well, the thing is...
It's like the Comet 2016 R2 that we've got that's actually near the Seven Sisters. We've had a wonderful time with this comet because it was meant to be 13th, 14th magnitude. It's a long way from the sun. And then all of a sudden there's an outburst and you've got this beautiful blue comet and there's wonderful twisting tails because of the solar wind and its interactions with this. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, like you can look at, I don't know, I've observed, I think, 335 or something, different comets. And
Wow.
I've never seen a blue one like that. Of course, visually it was not blue, but all of the photographs showed it. And so, I mean, you just don't know when something unique is going to pop up at any moment like that. And it was a beautiful comet just to see those whirls and twists in the tail. That was special.
I think the interesting thing about it was the fact that the comet had already passed perihelion by 5 months before discovery, and it was already passed closest to the Earth just a month before. And it was an apparent outburst in brightness that caused the discovery, from what I understand, for Holmes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, were you able to image that, Nick?
I have to go look back, because I started in imaging in August of 2007. I would have to try and get back that far in my with the telescope team and see if I've got it. I think I may have something, because I was just idly googling Comet Holmes images, and I seem to recognize or have seen one of the pictures of the coma where it's almost nebulous. There's a very bright central coma, and there's this nice deep halo, so to speak, around the actual nucleus. So I'm going to have a look back to see if I can find those images. If I'm lucky, it may mean that I did catch it when it was going past the California nebula, because I know a lot of people were fighting for scope time for that.
There were fights breaking out, as I recall. Just kidding.
Well, yeah, people. The scope I use is a first come first serve, really, for slots. So it got really people were really fighting to get time, even for a 5-minute imaging run.
Oh sure, yeah.
Because we all wanted pictures of it, and I've only just found out actually that the first elliptical orbits were independently calculated by Kreutz and Searle, using positions spanning November 9th to the 17th. Kreutz said the perihelion was June 10 and had a period of 7.9 years. Searle gave the perihelion date as October 12 and a period as 6.14. Interestingly, some people thought it was the return of 3D Biela at first, but that was the orbits proved, both combining the orbital data from both of those observers did actually show it was a completely different comet, which was really interesting. But it's amazing what you find out about comets when you sit there and you just decide to go and do a quick dig.
I mean, it was actually lost, wasn't it, from 1906, and then Eleanor Romer found it in 64, I think. So it's a pretty indescript comet at times, and then all of a sudden it does something crazy. As of course David Levy said about comets. We all know what David Levy said about comets.
Yeah, about cats and tails.
That's right.
That's good. Yeah, there were quite a few of those Levy comets, and I have not heard of any David Levy comets in a while now. I'm not sure if he's not searching anymore or if he's gone on to other things.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know
I think he's had some health issues, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware.
I understand he still plans to hold his comet camp up here in upstate New York. I think he does that every few years. He's still trying to hold that as much as possible. But hopefully one of these days I will get to that. That would be an awesome thing. Even though I can just record a brief snatch for the show about what it's like to have David Levy lecturing about comets.
He shares a great deal. You're probably aware of this, but he's put all of his log books online. And if you want to learn about David Levy, you should just go to his log books, and they're just filled with offhand comments. He's got data in there, of course. He's got these crazy sketches of comets. Some are fun, some are very detailed. Anyway, it's a wonderful thing that he did, made all of his log books available.
No, it's brilliant.
I actually got one of his books in my bookcase right here. I think it's Impact Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it second hand. I found it, and it's a signed copy. And I'm thinking some idiot gave away a signed David Levy book. I'm not complaining. It's mine now.
Good. That's your gain. That's wonderful.
Well, I say I took a photograph of the actual dedication and sent it to Jim Scotty, and he says, "Yep, that's David's handwriting. You're jammy. It's very hard to get him to sign stuff or talk outright about comics. Apparently, somebody tried to interview him about one, and he started speaking about Shakespeare."
Oh, right.
Now, would you like to tell us about your books, Bob?
Well, the one book, the first one I had written, it was a little over 1 year old. It was published back in November of 2016. It's called Night Sky with the Naked Eye, and it's about the things that you can see without any equipment. So it deals with eclipses and halos and all kinds of astronomical things, constellations, variable stars, but just things that don't require even binoculars. And the other book that I finished writing it this winter. I was asked to write another one, and we had to bounce the title around. It took some time to figure this out, but that'll be published in April. And it goes beyond naked eye observing, although about half of it is still naked eye, but half of it is telescopic. And it's called Wonders of the Night Sky You Must See Before You Die.
Sounds interesting.
I remember making this flippant suggestion, and they're like, yeah, let's go with that, the before you die part. And I thought, seriously? And it's their call. So that'll come out in April. And I have a section, or a chapter anyway, on comets. And I tried to make it contemporary, at least for this year, because as we know, trying to predict when you might see a great comet is impossible. So I put Comet Wirtanen in there, because I looked ahead across the year and I thought, this is probably the best bet for a comet, right? It's supposed to reach roughly third magnitude in December. So I slipped that one in. And that one might be visible from suburban areas, and certainly from the countryside.
That would be nice to have something really nice and bright like that. I think the big issue we have, I suppose, is the fact that we now that there's a comet coming in, the sensible pundit says, but keep in mind it may not brighten sufficiently to be naked eye. Then the newspapers pounce on it. Oh, we're going to have a beautiful naked eye comet coming in for such and such a date. And everybody looks up and they don't see it, and they get really, really fed up and upset because it's just not happened.
Yeah, they're always set to dazzle the night sky, aren't they? In the press.
And that has taken as far, because I write about comets and I write a regular blog. The blog's called Astro Bob. But I write these things, and I have to be careful. I've sort of learned that I don't want to burn my viewers, lead them to expect something so bright. So over the years, I've been toning back my descriptions of things and saying, bring binoculars. It may not be so bright, because I know people do get ticked off when because we're excited about these things. My gosh, as amateur astronomers, if something reaches third magnitude, we fall off of our chair.
Yep.
But to the average viewer, they're like, I can't see it. I look up, I don't see anything. So I'm trying to be more cognizant of that lately.
I think the thing is, we know what to expect. We know that if, when 41p was being touted as the greatest thing since sliced bread, I was thinking, I'm just going to wait and see, because there's just that instinctive feeling that the pundits are all out, they're all shouting about this, and it was a decent comet by most people's standards. I used binoculars with great difficulty because of my glasses, but I got, at least I can say, I saw it, but that was with binoculars, and probably to get a better view, or a more stable view, you need a small telescope. And I like some of these sites, like the Sky Live and stuff, who are actually responsible, they tell you, they give you an idea what the minimum instrument you're going to need is.
Yeah, very useful.
Okay, so I'm, as all my friends know, I'm getting this horrendous light bucket. I've been joking with a telescope engineer friend of mine. He says, "Oh, well, when you get it, Nick, come and talk to me. We'll put it on our network." I'm thinking, yeah, great. We're going to have a UK telescope, but we get clouds a lot of the time during the year.
Right.
I may have to snatch views of the moon, or go online myself and use somebody else's 0.5 meter astrograph to get my image, which is perfectly fine by me. I like it. A lot of people say it's not real astrophotography because you're not using your own kit. Well, I've got something I would say to that, but I'm being polite because this is supposed to be family friendly. I don't care that you put time in and effort to take the image and
do the processing as well, which takes longer than the data capture most of the time. But like my husband has got TeamViewer set up now, so once the roof's open on our observatory shed, we can control everything from in our dining room. That's no different. But nobody criticises us for imaging from our own garden remotely, but they do if you use a New Mexico telescope. Yeah. So I find the argument just really odd, to be honest.
It's hypocritical.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's just all about sharing what there is out there, and location is. Hey, we're only a pinpoint, right? When you look at the solar system, there's nothing. We got nothing going here, so it's all one tiny planet.
Well, the number of security lights that keep getting put up in our village are going to have to be 100% remote imaging at this rate before too long.
Oh well,
are you struggling with? Are you guys struggling with LED lighting coming up?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been told of a workaround for that. One of our friends at a certain place said, get one of those handheld laser jobs, put it on the light sensor. It'll go down. It'll take it down for about 3 or 4 hours, and therefore the light will go out. Yeah.
Have you tried it? Does it work?
I haven't personally tried it, but he says it does actually work. And he said the other way is you just get a BB gun and shoot the thing.
That's always been my favorite fantasy. Sitting around in a pickup truck with a shotgun just blasting out lights when I'm a really old man and it doesn't matter anymore. But no, this in Duluth, it's interesting. It's just a modest-sized city, but much new LED lighting has been installed. And one of the issues is how much snow there is on the ground. And that reflects, even if the lights are housed properly, they're at least flat, maybe not shielded, but flat inside the fixture. The light reflects off the snow, goes right up into the sky. And there's no question about it where I live, that this has been the brightest winter sky I have ever seen it's been about 40 years. And it's attributable.
Horrible.
And it's because of the snow and the LED combination.
Gosh, I hadn't even thought of that. You can't even filter it, can you? You just can't even put a clip filter in for it because it's broadband.
It's broadband. So the only thing I can do is I have to drive out a little further from town to get a reasonably dark sky. But we're trying to get some light pollution stuff enacted here, and we've got an active group of amateur astronomers who are working with the city, but I don't understand their reluctance sometimes. It seems such an obvious solution is to pick a lower temperature, the yellow LED, and to house it, and maybe to bring down the wattage, save more power.
So I wrote an article about this subject for our village newsletter recently, and I was shocked to find out that there's one of the lighthouses that are quoted on the Dark Sky organisation website that the wattage of the bulb in the lighthouse was only 25 watts, but you could see it from 26 miles away. And people are putting kind of external lights that are 400 watt in their garden. And it's just ridiculous. You can buy them for cheap as chips off online retailers, and they don't set them up properly, and they're just like 8 times brighter than they ever need to be. It's just stupid.
So are you talking about home lighting, where people, so-called security lighting? Where
Yeah, home lighting, definitely people buy them way too bright, but I think a lot of the street lights are too bright as well. They've recently changed some up the road from us, and you can see them from miles away now. The glow from them is visible from further away than the old ones were.
Yeah, I try to, when I teach astronomy, I try to work with the class a little bit. I've pulled some examples of lights you can buy locally to put on your house, at any rate, to put on your house so that you have a minimal amount of light pollution. Just to let people know, hey, when you go to buy a yard light, here's 1 or 2 or 3 that you can buy that will keep the sky darker. And they seem to appreciate it, but I decided to go over to the hardware store and look over their supplies and just try to pick something that was better for astronomy, plus less glare. I mean, obviously nobody needs the glare.
No.
So
I'm going to say
comets. They hurt those comets we love. Comets stand no chance.
No, not against that. So apart from better lighting on their houses, what suggestions do you have for people that are just starting out with comet observing or hunting?
Well, let's see. Well, to be in touch, obviously, with the website, the Sky Live is a good one. And I recommend people just hook into the Comet Observers list and check that out. I use Seiichi Yoshida's page a fair amount. But are you talking about beginning observers, Mary?
Yeah, just anyone that's new to, particularly new to comet observing, not necessarily new to astronomy, because I know it's an area that people feel a bit daunted by.
Well, yeah, I think... Now that's a good question. Just new to comet observing. Stay in touch with the lists. Go to the BAA website to find out what are the current comets this year, because it's all laid out there too to see which are the brightest, so you could kind of pick and choose. I've written up every January I write up something for Sky and Telescope about bright comet prospects, the brightest comets for the year. So I've got an article that people can look up online there, Bright Comets 2018, Sky and Telescope. And it has maps and some directions and magnitude estimates and so on. So I think if people get that basic information, kind of keep those websites handy, they'll know what to anticipate. Plus, they can watch observers submit magnitude estimates and become aware of when there's a bright outburst, or if a comet moves into a magnitude range that's within their scope range. Plus, I'll write about, I like getting the news out, just like you guys. I'll write about it in my blog, too, and say, hey, get out there, if you have a telescope, and you're going to want to see such and such comet. And so those are a few different ways, at least, that I use or I'd recommend.
Yeah, also, as you mentioned the BAA there, I said to you guys offline before, but the Comet section observing guide has just been updated from the BAA, so that is available to buy. It was reissued in January, which I picked up a copy at Astrofest, and that has been updated with a lot of information, and I think that's something good for people to get hold of if they're just getting started in this area. And actually I still class myself very much a comet beginner, and I've found it very useful. So
that's very good.
Yeah, I remember the original publication, and even then it was a great little publication. It was a smaller format, obviously, but if they've updated it and expanded it, I really do suggest buying it. Join an association like the BAA, the Pacific.
It's SPA as well.
Yeah, the Society for Popular Astronomy, the Astronomy Society of the Pacific, the American Astronomical Society. All well worth joining, because that will give you access to a huge resource. It will give you access to people like Bob, who have actual hands-on experience, and they can guide you through the first steps. In fact, I've always told people, don't buy a telescope straight away. Buy a pair of binoculars, buy a large pair of binoculars, 20 by 80s, 20 by 90s, or 100. See if that's what you really want to do, because you can get some nice little comets with binoculars. You can look at the moon, you can look at the planets, and you can decide, is this really what I want to do? And if you decide astronomy is not for you, you can use them for other things too. A telescope is purely and always going to be an astronomical instrument, unless it's one of those gimmicky ones that they sell you for nautical use. Even then, binoculars are better. But buy binoculars first, get a firm idea of what you want to do, and go to star parties. I think star parties are the greatest thing because, again, they have people there who can help you make decisions about what you want. What's your opinion on star parties, Bob?
Oh boy, they are a lot of fun. I generally don't sleep is the problem when I go to those. I was at one in Ohio this last fall, and oh my gosh, we observed until 2:00 in the morning, and I thought, I'm dead. I've got to get to bed now. So I got to bed, barely got to sleep. There was a rap on the door. Bob, Orion's up. We got to get out. And I got out of bed, and I was so glad I did, because the nebula and then seeing Sirius B, the companion to Sirius, one thing after another, it was like, oh, and then it was dawn. I should have stayed up the whole darn night. You know how it is. One other thing, and you were talking, Nick, about resources. The Comet observing group that I'm referring to a lot through email is called Comet OBS, COMETOBS, and it's Comet. You're on that one, right? Comet OBS at Yahoo Group. So it's just a Yahoo Group, and when you subscribe to that list, I mean, there's people around the planet are submitting their observations, and it's fantastic if there's an outburst. And even for a beginning observer, you're like, really? I can see a bright comet? Yes, it's just been reported. You can see it yourself. But getting back to star parties, wonderful. People show you all kinds of things. You can share what you think is fascinating, and what a beautiful way to lose sleep.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think this is probably one of the reasons I have probably gone for the light bucket in the end, is because, if you're at a star party and the viewing isn't all that brilliant, the moon is always and it's the right time of the month. The moon is always there, and you can get people hooked by looking at the moon. And then you can say, come back in a couple of nights. The moon's not going to be up until it's early morning. Then we can go for deep sky stuff, and then we can go for comets. One question I'd like to ask you: what are your thoughts on Rosetta so far, and what are your hopes for the future?
For Rosetta, oh my gosh, I was so excited about Rosetta because although I had observed a number of comets way long ago, like Comet West and Comet Bennett back in the 1970s, even Ikea Secchi, it was Comet Churyumov-Gerasimenko, if I'm saying that right, that really got me into comet observing as a passion, because I just enjoyed tracking it, this little 12th magnitude comet at the time. And when I heard we were going there, I was thrilled. And to be able to see one of my very favorite comets up so close, and to actually see the dynamics of how things happen, how jets form, for instance, and how pieces crumble about on a comet, and then those photographs of the dust being blasted away from the coma. It was just one of the best missions I have ever seen, and enjoyed via online photos. And the library that's available now is incredible too. So happy to be able to dig through there and look at anything.
Yeah, I have to admit, I was on tenterhooks for the Philae landing. There was the slightly comedic interlude with Philae bouncing, and when they actually
they actually found out quite a lot of science as a result of that, though. So it wasn't
absolutely
wasted.
No. And when they finally,
it just looked funny.
Yeah.
It didn't work right, but in the end, you're absolutely right, Mary. We got some great science.
I think Neil's dropped off the call, by the way.
I know. I'm trying to pull him back in.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you'd seen that. Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. I've got my eagle eye on it.
I've been to quite a few talks now by people that were involved in Rosetta, and no matter how many times I see images or listen to someone talk about that mission, I still get goosebumps. It was incredible. It was so incredible.
Yeah, I mean, for comet observers to be able to get close to the objects we love and see them for what they are, it's just a thrill. I love these missions, and I think they're inspirational. I mean, not just for us, but other people who see these pictures too and go, wow, that's what a comet looks like. And yeah, so I hope we do more missions to comets in the future.
What would be your first choice of comet to go to if you had an unlimited budget and could send a mission to one tomorrow?
Oh, tomorrow. But I love this. That's nice. Unlimited budget and tomorrow. Well, I think I would go, well, I would pick, I would land a craft. I would go to, give me a second here. I'm just thinking. My first choice, because it would be easy maybe, would be Comet Enki.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because it's short period, it shouldn't be too hard to get there, and the comet is active and interesting. I would love to see Enki. It's the comet I've seen more than any, well, I take it back. I've seen 29P Schwarzenbach more than any other comet. Boy, that's a tough call. Either Enki or 29P.
I would love to do 29, send the probe to 29P for long duration. Maybe give it one of the new ion engines, as well as solar and snap strontium-90 batteries.
Excellent idea with the ion engine. Just send it there for the long-term mission, and just watch those outbursts unfold. Well, that comet is unbelievable. I think I've seen 30 outbursts of it. It's just a favorite to watch. It's such a surprising object. Sorry, what were you going to say?
What I was also going to say was I think it had to be Comet Hawley on its next approach.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yes, I think for everybody, the whole thing about sending probes to comets started with Hawley's comet, and I think it's perhaps one we would do well to revisit. And again, do it a similar mission, have a probe that's equipped for long duration, like Voyager, so it can call home even when it and the comet are far out in the depths of the solar system, and we can actually observe firsthand everything from the approach to perihelion and to the comet going back into the outer depths of the solar system. That's something we currently can't do, and we know, even using the technology of the 60s and 70s, transistor technology, which is what Voyager had. It had nuclear power on board, and it's still talking to home today. Some of it is a little bit ropey, but they're still getting science out of these probes. Even though that far away. Yes, I know it's hard to communicate with them. It's a long time to get information back, but we can do it. We certainly did it with New Horizons at Pluto, and that mission is going further out now into the trans-Neptunian objects, where a lot of comets do actually live anyway. So this could be a possibility for perhaps getting a more in-depth look at how a comet evolves as it travels through the solar system.
Plus, Nick, maybe I should change my choice here, because Comet Halley is, like, the public is aware of that. They'd be very interested in that mission right off. They'd hear that name, and it would be like, really? We can see Halley's Comet? So Halley is actually a good choice. It's on its way in, and there's plenty of time to develop a spacecraft. So who knows? That's a great choice.
Maybe we can just take the same technology that we're using for New Horizons and send that out there. That has the ion engine. Certainly, New Dawn, which correct me if I'm wrong, which I can be occasionally, which is out near Ceres, that has the ion propulsion system, which is the only reason we've actually been able to maneuver it and sometimes get really in close to do science. So yeah, we have the technology. Do we have the scientific will to look at perhaps comets which are in the public imagination and public mind and learn more? Vega, Giotto, all, I can't remember. I'm ashamed. I have to say I can't remember the Japanese probes that went there as well. But they taught us so much in a very brief moment, right up to encounter with Giotto's encounter with the nucleus and the damage to the main camera. But even after that, Giotto showed us what it was made of. He went on to Sculler up, and it did even more science. That was a choice. We knew that we had enough fuel on board Giotto to do it, and the scientists thought, let's do it. Let's go for a second Comet. Let's do 2 missions in one. And I think with Pluto, we're going into the Kuiper belt and everything. We proved we can do it. We have the kit that can talk to home, that is going to stay alive. The equipment we're using on Juno shows us that we have stuff that can survive high radiation environments. We now have a rocket in the form of the Falcon Heavy that can take the probe there probably even quicker with a traditional rocket assist. I think if Starman did one thing and the Tesla, it showed us that they have a third stage engine that is capable of being reused and relit on multiple occasions. Say, let's do it. Let's go to 29P SW1. Let's go to Halley's Comet, and let's really fire up public imagination.
Yeah, I think it would be a great one to do. I don't know. There were specific reasons, of course, for 67P being chosen. It was active, but maybe not too active. But I don't think Halley is one of those explosive type comets like 29P. So that may still make it a good choice. So give me the phone number who I need to call to get this mission underway. Make some calls.
Well, let's say Richard Miles is coordinating the 29P effort to constantly monitor. He's also involved in the push to get this designated as a space mission. Because with all the imagings they're getting of 29P in and out of outburst, we're able to time it. And if you can actually say to the mission planners, okay, this is what we're seeing, you have X amount of time between outbursts, this is how they're appearing to us in images, this gives us an idea of how violent it is, so this is the type of spacecraft, this will tell you what the spacecraft has to have, and it will need to have the ion engine, I think, so it can maneuver back and forth from the Comet when there's a violent an outburst due. All outbursts are violent with comets. To say that they're not, it would be stupid. But we have that capability, and I think now we should use it. And as I say, it is a great pro-am collaboration as well. I'm going to get this wrong. I always get this comet wrong. 64 CG, 64, 67. I can't remember. CG was a great proving ground for pro-am collaborations, and even those were resorting to remote telescope imaging in color and luminance only. It really showed what can be done by amateur astronomers. Our kit has really advanced in a very short period of time. I have to say, it's great because companies like Meade, Celestron decided they wanted to make telescopes which were affordable to the average astronomer in the street, instead of, because I remember reading the old Sky and telescopes, seeing an advert for an 18-inch Celestron. That was something like about $14,000, and that was a basic telescope.
Yeah.
A 10-inch Newtonian with GoTo is under 2,000 today. A half meter Dob with all the bells and everything is something like about 13K in the US. And that includes having electronic focusers and everything else.
Well, that would be a very nice Dob. Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay. This is my wish list I've given to my mate, and he's actually had a look at. I want moonlight electronic focusing, a 2-inch focuser. I want ServoCat so that I can image with a CCD or a DSLR. So that means either Sky Commander or Argo Navis. It's an f3.3 mirror. Originally he was doing f4.5s, but no one really wanted that. They wanted faster mirrors than that, so he provides faster mirrors. He's saying, what type of mirror do you want? Tell me what you need, I'll do it. And he's given them a really lovely looking telescope to use and image with. And for me, having that amount of light I can grab means I will start going after faint comets at home. That's the whole reason for it. I want to be able to have something I can put together and put out quick. Although I've decided, why take the Dob down? I'll just build an enclosure. One of my friends said, "Yeah, what's it going to look like?" And I turned around and said, "It'll look just like the TARDIS." Because then you can have the Dob pointing, the Dob pointing straight up, vertical. You can wheel it out on its wheels, get it into your observing position, and you're all set to go.
That's what we've done with ours. I mean, compared to you guys' Dobs, ours is tiny. It's only a 10-inch, but it was so heavy that I couldn't move it. So we've put it on a new wheelbase of my old mobility scooter and built its own little outhouse, so it just rolls out now and is ready to use in the middle of the garden. Because before, when it was in the observatory shed, you can't really use a Dob in the observatory shed on its original mounting, so we had to wheel it down a concrete path, so it was out of collimation before you could even do anything with it. So now it just big wheels across the lawn into the middle of where you want to use it, and it's ready to go. And it's just having that new setup has made it much easier to use that scope, and I've been using it a lot again recently, and I love it. It's one of my favorite scopes. I think they're brilliant.
That's so great when you can get to the scope quickly and easily. That's like the 10-inch that I use. It just comes out and it's ready to go. I was thinking when you were telling me about how you transported of Clyde Tombaugh, the Pluto discoverer, he had a attached to his lawnmower. Remember, he just kind of mowed it out into the yard.
And of course, we got Neil back.
Yeah. Hello, yes. I just want to ask Bob his thoughts on Oumuamua. Because some people, I mean, I think even Alan Simmons is still saying today from the University of Belfast, I think it is, that because this object's been travelling through space for probably billions of years, it could have built up a crust, sort of like a Tholen crust. So in other words, it could actually still be a comet, but it's like insulated, going down to maybe 0.5 metre, which means that even though it was very close to perihelion last October, the sun wouldn't have actually gotten to, the solar radiation wouldn't have gone into the comet, or, well, if it is a comet, and created a typical comet as we would know. So I just wondered your thoughts on that object in general.
Oh yeah, I saw that same study or whatever, and it seemed to make sense to me too, based upon, it sounds like tholins or some kind of containing compounds, something like you would find on a comet's surface. So it seems like it's plausible to me, absolutely. I understand though that the illustration that made the rounds across the internet is actually a little overdone. It's too elongated. It makes it look too bizarre. You probably heard that too, but it's probably closer to like half as narrow and long as what we've seen in that illustration. What I think is interesting is I'm kind of of the school that this is the first of many objects that ultimately will be discovered, interstellar objects. And I love the idea that it sort of broke open the solar system. It's like we're so used to everything coming from the solar system, but all of a sudden here is this Oumuamua, this comet that's from somewhere else. And I think with better instrumentation, we're going to be discovering more and more of these. I like the idea that, I know we know this, but that comet reminded us that, my gosh, we're connected to the rest of the galaxy too. There's all kinds of stuff flying out there. So I was pretty excited with the news about that comet, asteroid, whatever it might ultimately be. Have you heard it? Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
there was a great talk about that at Astrofest, actually, and I think they were saying that there's some new, I can't remember which telescope specifically they were talking about that's going to be online soon, and they suspect they're going to actually find that there are a lot of these objects. It's just they obviously don't have a particularly good albedo, so you can't see them and you can't see them that easily because they're just so faint. But I think their thinking is that there are actually going to be quite a lot of these objects floating around in our solar system, and we will start finding more of them, which I think is really exciting.
That really is. And the thing is, and that's how everything starts, isn't it? You see one of something and go, boy, there's only one of these. And then pretty soon there's a second. Just think how asteroids got started. There was 1 and 2 and 3. And now there's, hundreds of thousands of plotted
As soon as there are 2, you know that there are going to be
Oh,
loads.
there's a million. There's a million when there's 2. I know. And that's what I think it is. And just the idea, I mean, it enlarges our kind of concept of we're a member of something larger even than the solar system, which is big enough to begin with for human beings, but to be connected to the greater galaxy with all kinds of things tumbling through is a very exciting thought.
Well, I know that they've talked about planets that are traveling through the galaxy and stuff, and rogue stars that are basically just drifting through the whole of the galaxy. Why shouldn't we have an asteroid that does it? So it's probably about time. I think we had the first one they start talking about was a star that was just making its own way through the galaxy. Then someone thought was going on about planets. Then we started finding exoplanets, and we started finding them in an old data, much more than we realised. And now we've got Muamua, which is an extra solar system object, probably just a hunk of rock. I was hearing, oh look, it's Rama, it's Rama come true.
Oh yeah.
It's like you have to start. That's at that point you have to start telling people to calm down and get back into the real world. If it was something like
what,
Rama,
you don't believe in Nibiru?
No, I don't. Because
that's certainly made the rounds too.
It comes up every now and again. And as I tell somebody, I keep telling people, no, there is no way NASA, JAXA, the Chinese, the Russians could keep it under wraps. There are too many amateur astronomers with cutting-edge instruments looking for new things to try and get their name against or name themselves. Anything like that would have been found a long time ago, and it would be splashed, because you can guarantee it gets into an astronomy magazine, even if it's just a club journal, it will be picked up quite often by the press, or it will be picked up by the big astronomy journals, and then it will be everybody will be looking at it. So there's no way things like Nibiru can exist really and be on a collision course with the Earth. Statistically speaking, somebody would spot it, and there is no way on this planet they're going to keep quiet about it.
Oh, that's the first thing you want to do. It's like, hey, look at this thing I just saw.
Yeah.
So you want to share it, yeah.
As Brian Marsden used to have up in front of his desk, anything that goes bang or moves, Marsden wants to know about it.
Did he have that, really? There was a little placard? A sign?
There was apparently, I was told, according to what I was reading from Mr. Levy, he had this placard that says anything that goes bang or moves in the night sky, Marsden wants to know about it.
Well, that's good. That would describe this group too, I think.
You got to remember that, I mean, the solar system, we know as comet people that a lot of the comets that are coming to the end of the solar system, especially over the last few years, are hyperbolic objects. They are going to eventually be kicked out of the solar system, and they're going to find another solar system. So why shouldn't things be piling into us? We know that other stars have Oort clouds. We know this. So our sun steals and our sun gives. I mean, it's give and take, literally.
Yeah. That's how. Yeah. It's that give and take that eventually brought us here to this computers. It's just the wonderful mixing through time, through the eons. I don't know. I always enjoy kind of putting smallest things into the biggest picture. So forgive me.
That's right.
It all is connected to me, in my mind.
What I'm going to do, Bob, I'm going to ask you for when we finish the call, if you can send me links to your blog. So that we can get people looking at that as well, because I do the show once we actually wrap the show. As most people know, I sit on my computer. I am a terrible, boring person. I write up show notes. And I do that for all the shows I'm involved with.
That's some yeoman's work there, for sure.
It's good fun, actually, because normally when you talk about a link during a show, if you don't have a chat room, like we're a recorded show, the Event Horizon and Space Pirates, even if you ignore the name, we do talk about serious astronomy, and it's very hard to read out a URL accurately over the air and for someone to get it. So by doing show notes and making them available before the show or just after the show goes out, or before the show goes out, like in our case, it means people can go and look at what we were talking about and probably have a chuckle over how we pronounce names. I think one of the greatest things about doing this Chinese language course is I may actually improve on how I pronounce a lot of people's names on the discovery list.
I studied German in college, and so when I see an obvious German name, I can't help but want to pronounce it in German too. So hence, when I tell my amateur astronomer friends what comet I'm looking at, I go like, well, it's Schwarzmann-Wachmann, 29P. It's just, you have to say it that way.
Yeah.
So,
that's about the only pronunciation I normally get right, I think, in the shipping forecast.
That's the one I get yelled at. Our radio producer yells at me frequently for that one. When the show first started, it was live because we were part of Under British Skies, and I always had issues with that one, and I would get yelled at the end of the show. No, it's this. In fact, I believe our radio producer Michael actually did interrupt the show to tell me off for that one, but I don't care.
That's all right.
I really don't care anymore.
That's all right.
I did actually find all our 10 questions. Normally we're asking Comet Hunters these questions, so let me just go back to the...
Oh, sure.
Okay, so what is your favourite observatory in the world?
Oh, wow. What a question. I had not thought about it. My favorite observatory, I've only been to a few really professional ones. Gosh. That's a hard one. I've been inside Mount Palomar, and I've seen the 200-inch. So, but no, that's not my favorite. Okay, my favorite is Lowell Observatory. Because I went there to Flagstaff, and I got in the long line one night so that we could look at the planet Saturn through the telescope. And it was a beautiful night. And so that was quite memorable because I knew that Percival Lowell had observed through that scope too. No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I've got one more. Do you mind if I squeeze one more?
Yeah.
All right. I had the opportunity once to look through the 40-inch Yerkes refractor in Williams Bay, Wisconsin. They were sending amateur groups through on shifts of 2 hours long. And our group had the 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. shift. And it was raining all night, but it stopped right about the time we started. So we got to look through the 40-inch at M13, Saturn, the Ring Nebula. Yeah, that was probably my favorite experience right there.
I have to admit, mine is the James Lick.
Yours was Lick?
Yeah, I was out in California in the 80s, and I was staying in San Jose, and where I was, they said, hey, you have to go up Mount Hamilton and visit the James Lick Observatory. So I did. I went up, signed the book as a BAA member, and they said, well, if you can come back tomorrow night, they're having a public observing session. So I went back, and I got to look through the refractor there, and I was just so psyched. I don't remember what it was they had actually had it on, but it was like, I can't believe I'm using this wonderful instrument. We queued. We had about 5 minutes apiece on it, and it was just a heck of an experience. Mary, your favourite observatory?
I've never actually visited one, to be honest, so I don't have one. When I was a child, we had one in Preston called the Jeremiah Horrocks Observatory. I didn't have any family or friends that were interested in astronomy, so every time we drove past it, I wished I could have gone there. And it's only years after it had closed I found out that I could have done if we'd gone on one of the public observing nights. And it made me so sad to see the place just becoming more and more rusty and sad looking, but apparently they are now doing it up again. So from a nostalgic point of view, even though I've never actually been inside it, I always get that kind of wave of childhood astronomy nostalgia whenever I see that place. So if I had to pick one, despite never being inside one, that would probably be it. It just means a lot to me from my childhood, I guess. So
Neil?
I'm a bit like Mary, actually. I haven't actually been to one, but I'll tell you, this is an observatory, but you'll see why I say this. I would have loved to turn back time and gone back to, say, 1991 or two, and looked for Comet Austin and gone to Patrick Moore's back garden in the Farthings at Chelsea in England, and sat with him looking at Comet Austin or just meteor showers or planet Saturn, anything, to sit with Sir Patrick Moore, have a little drink or two and chat and observe the night sky all night long.
Well, the only good thing I can say is I picked up on an update from Brian May that he made last year. Most of Patrick's notebooks and everything are going to be available.
Brilliant!
The Science Museum is setting up a permanent exhibit around Patrick, and if you're a scholar, you can actually access his notebooks and everything.
Oh, that's good.
Amazing.
If I could, it's one of your countrymen, George Alcock. I'm familiar with, and the comet. I don't know how many comets he discovered, but if I could relive one moment with a comet observer, because I'd like to imagine having somebody in the car from the past, like I imagine talking to Beethoven or famous whoever from the past. But if I could relive a moment, it would be when George Alcock got up in his pajamas and looked through the window with his binoculars and discovered Comet IRS Iraqi Alcock. I just thought that was wonderful how he found it. That was back in 1983. I don't know, have any of you seen that comet? Nick, maybe?
No, I didn't get really into comets until the last apparition of Halley's Comet.
Okay.
I think that was the thing that really got me involved. I think, as I could probably say, for me and Neil and Mary, we had the sky at night as a TV resource. Yeah. We had to stay up to midnight gone and watch BBC Two for a 20-minute program about the latest thing. So yeah, I followed it, but I really didn't get totally hooked on comets until at least the last apparition of Halley's Comet. I've always been a lunar man up to that point anyway. Yes, it's nice to look at the galaxies and stuff, but Messrs. Clark, Burke and Moore got me hooked on the moon with their Apollo commentaries, and so up until 1980 odd, 1986 I think, for Halley's Comet.
Yeah, that's right. That was it.
I really wasn't into comets, and then of course in 2007 I started remote imaging, and I learned how to program the telescopes to look for comets, to actually image the comets instead of doing a canned mission as it was described. I learned how to use RA and DEC and the filters and everything, and to set up my own missions for imaging runs. And to be honest, as Neil, I put out a lot of pictures these days. Someone will say, "Anybody seen this comet yet? Anybody got a picture?" And I'll get a slot on a telescope somewhere in the world, and I will try to get a comet picture, even if it's really rough initially, just so that we actually have a picture of it that we can use for comparisons later on when everybody else starts to home in on it as well.
Yeah, well, the data is essential, getting that information. And that goes to something else as far as a comet observer, is how valuable photographs are in terms of teaching the eye what to look for.
Yeah.
When I see your photographs, Nick, or any of you who take pictures, I just like, oh, I see there's a kink in there. Can I possibly see that when I look through my telescope? So photographs always inform my viewing. So that's another great use for them.
Do you ever do any sketching? Oh, sorry, Neil, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, there's just one comment that I would advise everybody to try and get hold of with the remote telescopes and follow. It's going to be taking quite a while. It's, excuse me, 217 K2 Pan-STARRS. It's the comet that was discovered the furthest distance away from the sun. It's not going to be at perihelion until 2022, and we've already got pre-covery images going back to 2013. But this comet could have a nucleus around about the same size as Hale-Bopp, and could be very interesting. So when it comes in, that's one we want to keep an eye on, because this could be a very interesting object if it goes and does, for example, a comet Holmes, if it did something like that with a nucleus 7, 8, 9 times the size of Holmes, it could go into negative figures in magnitude. So, and it's an Oort cloud comet too, so anything can happen.
Another reason to be alive and to keep us still alive for that wonderful apparition.
Yeah.
That's good to know, Neil. Thanks. Mary, you had asked about sketching, and yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you do sketching as well as photography?
Yes, I'm a horrific sketcher of human beings, but give me a comet. I can actually make it look the way it... a little bit of a pencil tip, an eraser in my fingertip, and I've made many sketches of comets in my notebooks, and I used to do them all with a pencil on paper, whereas now I'm starting to move things into Photoshop. So I'll create some images of comets and other things using Photoshop.
Right.
And that works. Do you guys use that as well?
I've got it.
I use Photoshop for image processing, but for sketching, I've moved over to doing a lot of stuff on black paper with coloured pastel pencils, and then I photograph it. Yeah, I mean, I got turned onto that idea by somebody who I was having a chat with about solar sketching, actually, and with a solar scope, it can be quite difficult to image with an SLR sometimes through the H-alpha scopes. You just get so much overbleed of the red colours, and you lose detail. So I started sketching on black paper with coloured pastels, because I was actually finding I could pick up more detail than I could with imaging, particularly because you can tune the etalon to different wavelengths and add those features in, so you've basically got a composite image done on black paper. And a lot of my sketches now I do from photos, so it's kind of cheating a little bit, but what I would do if I wasn't doing black paper, I would photograph it, and I always photograph it anyway because pastels don't keep very well, they dull very quickly. So I photograph them and then get them printed, so that I've got a book that I can take round when I do talks and show people them without damaging the originals. But what I sometimes do is invert the images, so that if it is on paper and pencil, just invert it and then treat it as if it's an image and process it from there.
Yeah, the inversion function is very nice to use. Have you, I love the colored pencil idea, because some comets, obviously they have a little blue tone to them, and sometimes when they get close to the sun, the nucleus turns just wonderfully yellow. It was one of the Pan-STARRS comets that was close to the sun a couple of years ago, and it was just intensely yellow, and I thought I should really get some colored pencils or something, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But
that'd be L4. L4, I think that was.
L4?
2011 L4, yeah.
Yeah, in the spring, early spring.
That's the one, yeah.
Beautiful comet. Yeah,
well, I really like the pastels work really well for capturing that kind of thing, because they blend so nicely together, whereas ordinary colouring pencils don't.
Yeah. So pastels.
You can do it with the square ones. Black. Okay. I buy just pads of black sketch paper. I don't buy expensive pastel paper. Mm-hmm. But you can get the pencils that you can sharpen to a fine point, but you can also do it with the square stick pastels, and they actually did it with both when I was doing the sketching workshops for the Pete guys at Solar Sphere last year, and actually people did just as good a job with the flat square ones as they did with the pencils in the end. So I now do both, because I have loads, so I just use those.
Where can we see your work, Mary? I assume is it on your Facebook, or do you have
it's all on Flickr and Instagram and on my Facebook. I'll send you a link so you can have a look.
Please do.
I think that's one of the greatest things. Everybody derides Facebook. I turn Facebook into Science Book.
Yes, definitely.
I've been reported. I've forgotten how many times for it. I actually had my account suspended because someone didn't like a science story I'd posted, which made me laugh. But yeah, Instagram and Facebook and Flickr. Flickr's great because it keeps the integrity of the image, whereas Facebook tends to mess with it too much. So I'm slowly moving over to actually having either a link for Flickr now, or saying, okay, this is the pre-write-up image. I'll get everything noted up and it'll be on Flickr, and I'll put a link in later.
Yeah, I normally just share links to my Flickr version because, like you say, Facebook just hoses it up so badly that it's not worth doing. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see some of those. So that sounds good. So that's all I had to say about that. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Well, you know what? We've actually been going for nearly 1.5 hours. I'm going to get yelled at. I don't care. Same attitude always.
Record here, Nick. Can we go to 2? No, we won't. Just kidding.
Time flies when we're having fun.
Well, I tell you what we'll do. We'll get Rick Hill and Rich Kowalski on. We'll get Jim Scotty on, and then we will go for a record length show. Which I wouldn't be surprised if we actually one of these days do an 8-hour show. It would be interesting.
We should do a live one.
I'm being told not when dinner's waiting, so I think maybe tonight we're at 1 hour 25 minutes just gone. So I think probably a very good point to ask you, Bob. Will you come back at a future date?
I would love to. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
So, I think basically, thank you for coming, Bob. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
And so I think it's probably about time to start the goodbyes. Mary, I'm going to let you kick off tonight.
Okay, clear skies, everyone, and keep warm, and I'll see you all next month.
Bob?
Keep warm and have fun. That's all I can
say. And keep warm and hope a brand new comet's discovered tomorrow that's bright enough to see in your binoculars.
And clear skies, everyone, and we will be back next month. We'll make all the announcements, of course, on Facebook. And all I'm going to say on that bombshell, good night.